Welcome to another episode of WEBTOON Wars! Today we are going to look into the trope of a character who goes through a significant makeover. One that basically changes their reality and quite often ends up sending them into an existential crisis of sorts. It brings to mind the fairy tale of Ugly Duckling turning into a beautiful swan, and it is quite often accompanied with a commentary about the superficial nature of the society we live in. I was thinking how I should call this trope, since I couldn't find its name despite countless depictions on Webtoon, in anime, movies, and elsewhere. If there is one, please let me know. For now, we can settle for Glow Up Girl. A glow-up girl is a girl who faced some real hardships due to her physical appearance and was often bullied for it. There's much talk about the halo effect and its impact on how people are generally perceived, and these characters got handed the short end of the stick. They are unhappy and desperate to make a change. They end up undergoing a significant transformation that changes the way they look and by extent how they are being treated and how their life plays out for them. There are some depictions of glow-up boys, but this trope seems to be more common amongst the female characters. We see a mini version of it in the makeover scenes that are plaguing the romance genre, but in its full version, it's basically the story of how looks can determine the quality of someone's life. We're going to analyze two attempts at that portrayal, and I'm sorry upfront if I'm butchering these names, I promise I'm trying my best. So it's Jugyeong from True Beauty and Mirae from My ID's Gangnam Beauty. I've read True Beauty first. It was one of the first webtoons I got into, and I got immediately hooked into it. Upon discovering that they will be doing a live-action True Beauty, I also found out about another webtoon that had already been turned into a live-action series, and that's how I found out about My ID's Gangnam Beauty, which I'm going to be referring in this video as Gangnam Beauty because the name is too long. I haven't actually watched the live-action dramas yet, but the discovery of Gangnam Beauty prompted me to check out its original format, and that's how, in this very circular way, I got into reading it, and straight away I have noticed that certain elements of the story almost mirror those in True Beauty. Sua's and Sujin's respective character arcs and overall characteristics are very similar to one another. The main protagonists in both stories are going through very similar experiences as victims of bullying and are suffering from an imposter syndrome, struggling to find confidence in their newfound place in a society that they've earned due to their physical transformation. In both series, we have an aloof guy with the past that our main character gets involved with, that quickly gets some insights of the world that she's desperately trying to hide from others. Both stories touch upon the unfair treatment of people due to shallow tendencies of our society that commodified beauty and started selling it in form of surgeries, cosmetic treatments and makeup, and by doing so created this bizarre paradox in which you're doomed if you do, and you're doomed if you don't. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and start this analysis with Jugyeong. She is first portrayed to be a really geeky middle schooler who is in her grunge phase and is shown to be going against the grain with her style and taste in music. Despite not being considered pretty or cool, she is her authentic self and is not afraid to express herself as such, but that is gradually getting changed by the constant bullying that she is subjected to due to her supposed weirdness and ugliness. We see her building a crushing belief that she is unattractive, something that gets exasperated once she gets her heart broken by a school crush. She considers getting a plastic surgery but gets freaked out by the reality of it and the possible side effects, so this is where she discovers the wonders of makeup and starts experimenting with it. Her embarrassing first attempts at it cause her to be ridiculed by her classmates, but she is working very hard on perfecting her skills over summer vacation, and by the start of high school, she has the whole new set of looks and a whole new set of challenges. She doesn't really fully incorporate this new persona of hers. It feels more like a disguise to her. She starts to get a lot of attention, something that she never experienced before. Her social life blossoms and her past life starts to feel more like a last night's nightmare that she just wants to forget about. So much so that she's trying to distance herself from everything she was back then. She is so petrified with the perspective of being excluded again that she disowns her own music taste entirely changes her wardrobe, pretends not to like certain things such as comic books. On top of that, she tries to be agreeable at all times. She cannot entirely push away who she is though, of course, so that creates a strange split in her, in which she almost has this double life. At home, where she doesn't need to pretend and she can drop the facade, she still enjoys horror movies, comic books, loose fit clothes, and doesn't really wear makeup. She is like this unfiltered, raw, repressed self. When she's in public though, she cares about her looks to the point of obsession. Because she believes the looks are the very reason she is finally accepted, she is petrified of being rejected again, so people find out that she is faking it. She doesn't see makeup as a tool enhancing her own natural beauty, but as a mask that she hides behind. This way of thinking leads to huge suffering, as she is always questioning whether people truly accept her for who she really is, or somewhat give in into that supposed illusion that she created. Because she begins to hide certain parts of herself and interacting with others, for the most part of the story, Suho seems to be the only guy who truly knows and connects with all of her, because he meets her unfiltered self first in the comic book shop. He plays a role of a bridge of sorts that ends up pulling the disconnected sides of her back together and helping her in the process of integrating them. A lot of characters end up helping her in that process, but Suho is the one who pulls the first string and challenges a lot of narratives that she had built in her head. Her character development is an integral part of the story, and it's slow. So if you're expecting quick results, you might get a bit irritated, especially when it comes to her ability to stand up for herself. I personally didn't feel this way. I think it can take up a very long time to undo some emotional damage, even more so if there are a lot of repressed feelings in place. And I was very proud of every step Jugyeong took to make herself stronger and less reliant on judgment of others, and we got to observe her growth for quite a chunk of time during her high school years and then during her early adulthood. Her character development was gradual, slow, and at least in my opinion it felt realistic. Despite Suho and other characters helping her to grow into the person she eventually becomes, the growth is very much her own, and we see the efforts she puts in all along the way. It's not always easy. She struggles with a sense of purpose, fails at her goal of getting into a makeup academy and starts studying videography instead, a skill that later on turned out to be very helpful, by the way. She gets a serious makeup gig where she's trying to save the day and make her skills really shine through, only to get told off and humiliated in front of her colleagues by the person she really admires. She's so petrified of others seeing her bare face that she sleeps with makeup on when around friends and has a panic-induced stomach attack in the middle of a getaway with her boyfriend. She has an identity crisis of sorts that makes her feel like a fraud. She questions the societal pressure to look good and the treatment of those who don't, but gets so laser-focused on appearances that she can herself sometimes come across as quite shallow. She is always accused of being a slob by her mother and is very judgmental of herself, believing that makeup is basically the only thing she's good at. She's always looking for reassurance as her self-image is very fragile, and it's quite understandable since on one hand she faces mean comments and reactions from people when she goes out with no makeup on, but on the other hand she also faces scrutiny over using it. There are a few times in the story where she gets subjected to mean comments talking about her caked up makeup and so on, so she's basically faced with an impossible dilemma. Before reading True Beauty, I haven't really thought about makeup as anything else than a slight enhancer of one's natural features, but this story kind of inspired me to embark on my own makeup journey, and upon digging through countless videos of makeup tutorials on YouTube, I can tell you that there are some skilled artists out there that can literally shapeshift into another person using makeup. Some of these videos blew me away and got me thinking about the perspective of a person who does it on a daily basis. And make no mistake, Jugyeong does some shapeshifting with her makeup, to the degree that her own boyfriend and close friends don't even recognize her when she's not wearing it. It's always very emphasized by the story how this double life takes a toll on her and makes her question her worth and who she really is. The freedom makeup gave her became a trap for her self-esteem because she failed to accept her bare face. We see other people gradually learning the truth about her and accepting her regardless of her looks, but she's the final person that has to do it. and life finds a way to push her to do so. As soon as she finally manages to find her purpose, she immediately gets threatened by the demons from the past. This time she has to face them, but she's ready. By that time, all the people who are close to her know how she looks like, and she's having a big emotional support system behind her that helps her fuel the spirit. So after a few mishaps, she's finally mastering a courage to do it. It's really satisfying, and it also doesn't mean her issues are over. Until the last chapters of the story, it really challenges Jugyeong, her views on herself and others. It encourages her to take small steps and at times forces her to make huge leaps. And the final leap she has to take is when she manages to build herself as a successful content creator and the picture of her bare face gets leaked. She goes through personal hell, but ends up pushing through with a renewed sense of purpose. Her character journey is one of a self-acceptance, but it takes her a step further. She integrates all parts of herself, finds her path, and manages to put herself in the center, but now that she learned these lessons, there's more in store for her. She got what she needed, and now she needed to give back. So she ends up actually decentering herself and using her makeup skills to help others. And this is the higher purpose that she was so desperately longing for. One that she lost touch with by trying to be this perfect streamer and portray this perfect life. Throughout the whole story, the recurring theme was her using her skills to help others, and now she was in her final form. No longer obsessed with her own appearances, no longer fearful of exposure and being called a fraud, instead normalizing a natural face and at the same time promoting the idea that makeup is for everyone and everyone is allowed to express themselves freely through its art. She falls and gets up, but eventually Jugyeong we are left with is a person who is at peace with herself. Her doubts about fakery or pretending to be someone else by trying to enhance her beauty are gone. She becomes a more aligned, higher version of herself and helps others to achieve the same. When we leave her, she is really happy and fulfilled, finding out that the very essence of real beauty lies in how it makes people feel, not how it makes them look. We meet Mirae when she's getting rejected by another kid at school and she wants to undergo plastic surgery. And so she does as soon as she finishes high school. So similarly to Jugyeong, she's starting a brand new life at a brand new school. Only when it comes to Jugyeong, it's high school and Mirae is starting college. They are both extremely self-conscious at first. And in the case of Mirae, she's getting a lot of attention, but both positive and negative. Jugyeong is getting almost exclusively good feedback, but when it comes to Mirae, it's a bit of a mixed bag. She's getting a lot of compliments from guys and girls alike, but people are also calling her plastic surgery monsters. Apparently for some people it's quite obvious that she had some work done. This is causing her some hurt as she ends up overhearing some of these mean comments. On top of that, we meet the main antagonist of the story, Sua, who at first is a bit ambiguous but then reveals herself to be the villain. She puts Mirae on the spot on any occasion she has, similarly to Sujin in True Beauty when it comes to Jugyeong. I got some really icky flashbacks from some of these moments as I had similar things happening to me in the past few times. I remember this one particular time I was at the party and we in a group were standing outside in a circle and we were just basically chatting. And all of a sudden, completely out of the blue, this girl who I knew made a comment saying something between the lines of, "Oh, she's so jealous about my fuller figure because she just doesn't seem to be able to put on weight despite how much she eats." And I knew for a fact that this girl was dieting super hard to maintain the figure she had. And I was 100% convinced she was not jealous about my fuller figure. What happened was, all of a sudden, the whole group started making comments about my body, which I never really agreed to, and I never invited this kind of, judgment or criticism or anything like that. But what happened was people were basically cheering her on at my expense. And one guy even went so far to say that I looked a bit like I was pregnant because I happened to accumulate fat in my stomach, and at the time I also had a period, which made it very bloated. To be honest, I wasn't really bothered about that, but I was just mildly annoyed at just, the freaking audacity of her. Like, I never freaking asked for this. Those who had this kind of thing happening know this particular brand on mean. Like, mean disguised as a kind of compliment that is designed to manipulate the group into drawing comparisons between the manipulator and an unwilling participator that gets dragged into this just to be used as a prop to squeeze some compliments out of people and gain feeling of superiority. Yay! Anyways, that's basically Sua's behavior towards Mirae in a nutshell, and she does it so masterfully that Mirae, for a good part of the story, believes she's actually her friend. Other people react mostly positively towards her, and she manages to find some friends and pique an interest of an aloof guy with a mysterious vibe. Welcome to Kyusung, who similarly to Suholi quickly builds an interest in Mirai that slowly develops into friendship and growing attraction. Just like Suho, he learns about our main protagonist's real face and agrees to keep it a secret. Apart from Kyusung, who at first is a very distant character, other men are also showing interest in Mirai, and because of her self-esteem at the beginning of the story, she accepts advances of a massive douchebag who is trying to drag her into a hotel first time they go outside drinking with everyone. She later on stands up to him and with the help of Kyusung manages to put him on his ass, but we can clearly see that she has some issues with drawing boundaries too. We see though, through rare moments that she gets pushed over the edge, that she has it in her to defend herself and can be very brave at times. She has to undo the damage that bullying caused her, just like the main character of True Beauty, but we see her fiery side much earlier in the story. Unlike Jugyeong, who is a bit lost when it comes to making future decisions regarding her life, Mirae has a clear goal from the beginning. She wants to become a perfumist. And she's not afraid to chase her dream. She hides the truth about her surgery, but apart from that, we don't really see her trying to dissociate with any of her personal traits. Well, maybe when she gets told off by Kyusung, she tries to change her outlook a bit. If Jugyeong can come across as shallow at times due to her heightened sensitivity to the way herself and other people look, Mirae outwardly judges them and even gives them grades. In both cases, we see quite a fascinating fixation that stems from being judged themselves in the past and causes them to end up actually beginning to judge others as well. She gets pulled up on that by Kyusung and that shakes her entire core as a character. We get to observe a process where she's slowly learning to see the world through a different set of lens. This process slowly turns her into a more confident person who is not afraid to speak out, defend herself and others, and look past differences to find out that sometimes behind them there are unexpected similarities. Upon discovering Sua's true intentions and the hidden side of her personality, she who gained more perspective because of the work she put in to become a less shallow version of herself and more confident one, is finally able to see that Sua is suffering from the very same issues that manifest in a slightly different way. Mirae is able to look past their issues and reach her hand out to Sua, essentially saving her. This is very similar to what happens to Sujin and Jugyeong in True Beauty, but Sua plays much bigger part in Gangnam Beauty, and her resolution is closely tied with Mirae's resolution, as now that she had managed to sort out her own backyard, she is now in a position to help others to do the same. And so she does. So ultimately, Mirae's arc is to gain a deeper understanding of her world beneath the surface and become more insightful. To undo the superficial outlook that she gained due to her bullying and become more accepting of herself and others. To learn that she matters, that she doesn't need to apologize for existing and wanting to be happy. That she can live a fulfilling life, not being obsessed with appearance, but still pursue beauty in its purer form, less contaminated by judgment made by others. To have a kinder inner voice and lift others up. This is a very similar arc to Jugyeong's, but the real question is, who did a glow-up girl better? Well, I think this will have to come down to the differences in the respective stories. I think these both stories share the same sentiments and similar message, but they touch upon different aspects of society's obsession with physical appearance. On one hand, we have makeup that in a lot of cases is treated as a self-care routine, which is fine if you yourself treat it this way, but becomes an issue if people are assuming that just because someone doesn't use makeup, they don't really take good care of themselves. And believe me, it does happen sometimes, mostly to women, because the standard is set for them to be using it. But don't you dare use it too much, then you are fake, a shapeshifter who creates alternative realities to trap a man, a catfish. Or maybe you just want to use it sometimes. Well, then you get asked if you're sick or whatever, shall we choose not to wear it? There are some extreme cases when makeup becomes such a necessity that some people don't even dare leaving their house without wearing it. To what extent it's their own judgment of themselves and they're merely expressing their freedom to choose how they want to look like. And to what extent is the case of all the negative feedback accumulating within them and pushing them to hide behind what is supposed to be just an enhancer, but ultimately becomes their mask. Also, are they wearing makeup because it makes them happy or because they feel in this way they are being seen as well put together? Maybe otherwise they will miss out on an opportunity or they won't see themselves as worthy of love and affection. The unrealistic beauty standards that are being pushed onto us daily are also making this more complicated, and all of the filters and fakery that we are exposed to on a daily basis takes it all to yet another level. It's a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. When most of people living in the society that is obsessed with looks are using makeup to enhance their appearance, you're in a worse position if you don't use it to your advantage, especially if you're not conventionally attractive. If you use it though, you are then accused of being fake and cheating the game. These issues are only exasperated when it comes to the matters of plastic surgery, and the world of celebrities is the perfect case study for that. There's a clear standard in place when it comes to their flawless appearance, so most of the people end up going under the knife. Because they are expected to be perfect and are judged based on their appearance all the time, they often feel pressured to do it, and a lot of them end up lying about their plastic surgeries to avoid criticism and accusations of being fake, which in turn makes other people's self-esteem worse, as they often believe in that perfect facade and start judging themselves more harshly or even going under the knife themselves to meet that perfect non-existing standard. And while we cannot avoid it to a certain degree, we are, for example, programmed to look out for danger, so it is natural for us to subject each other to some level of judgment from time to time. Like, if I see a shifty-looking person who is wearing blood-stained clothing, of course I'm gonna judge the hell out of them and ideally choose a different route. Or if I'm going to choose love interest for myself, I'm gonna go for someone that I find physically attractive. However, we could all benefit from a healthier relationship with beauty standards, because just like in case of makeup, we too have a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation here, especially when it comes to aging, and women appear to have it worse. The society is not only obsessed with looks, but it is also obsessed with youth, and female celebrities are often expected not to age as normal people do and are often degraded for losing what some very awful people would believe to be their social currency. A lot of them are trying to delay the process and are ridiculed for using Botox and undergoing surgeries because they are trying to cheat time. But those same people would examine every single wrinkle on a celebrity's face and call them old and washed out. There really is no winning here. Same as with makeup, you are basically expected to use plastic surgery to create an illusion of being naturally beautiful. But it has to be a perfect illusion. If it's too obvious, you're accused of being fake. And the truth is, people often get addicted to these treatments and end up overusing them as they develop a warped vision of themselves. As soon as they cross that line, the ridicule intensifies. Just look at what happened to Madonna. Makeup is similar in this regard, but plastic surgery adds that extra layer of trouble as you can't just take it off. Once you did it, there is no return. I am a strong believer of live and let live. I think you should be allowed to do whatever you want with your body. But the truth is also that nothing exists in a vacuum. If a lot of people choose to do the same thing, it becomes a trend. And if a lot of people follow a trend, it becomes a norm. And when it becomes a norm, the people who don't follow it often feel immense internal pressure to hop on the wagon out of fear of missing out or being excluded. On top of that, beauty industry profits a lot from people's insecurities and doesn't always follow ethics in their practices. A person who is undergoing cosmetic treatment or a surgery should have the right to make an informed decision. In the meantime, shady practices and constant marketing of new treatments supposedly overlook the dangers that these practices could cause, in some extreme cases even death. I am a big fan of makeup and not against plastic surgery per se, but in the world where a lot of entities are capitalizing on our insecurities, how one finds balance between self-expression and falling into traps that beauty industry and unrealistic standards are setting up for us. I think both of these stories dive deeply into this, just different aspects of it. They both raise interesting questions and masterfully tackle the wider narratives when it comes to lookism. Both Jugyeong and Mirae are well-developed characters with their own personalities and well-established character arcs. So, who portrayed a glow-up girl better? In this case, I think it's going to have to be a tie. Both of them did a great job at stealing our hearts, and both stories were very compelling. I was left with some interesting food for thought after reading each one of them, and I liked them both very much. Despite certain similarities, both stories managed to be unique in their own right. The main leads are both very complex, and their character journeys and story resolution as a whole are very satisfying. They are both very integral parts of their respective arcs and their active participators. They both manage to make people relate to them and carry the message of the story effectively. I can seriously recommend these both webtoons if you're looking for a fun read that will make you laugh, that will make you think, and that will pull on your heartstrings at times. I enjoyed them through and through. There were bits that I enjoyed more than other bits, but this is a material for a whole another video. For now, thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more webtoon and entertainment videos. I wish you a very, very lovely week, and I'll speak to you later. Bye!